Yeah, I actually covered Charlotte City Council last time they proposed a mobility tax back in the late 90s. That's when they called it a transit tax. A half penny on the Mecklenburg sales tax. That's still around today. That's the money they used to launch our light rail system and to pay to expand our bus system for decades here in Charlotte. In fact, we even dug up the old PowerPoint presentation that City Hall produced back in 1998 to support that original transit tax. In fact, some of what they promised from the transit tax more than 20 years ago actually happened. CAT's light rail service in what they called the South Corridor from Uptown to Pineville turned out to be a huge success. Maybe not so much with transit riders, but definitely with the live-besiders. The light rail Blue Line itself now surrounded by new apartments, office buildings, restaurants, shopping. But what about the commuter rail Red Line in the so-called North Corridor to Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson? The old transit plan said from 2000 to 2005, the transit tax would pay to build these high-quality North Mech bus stations that could ultimately be converted to Red Line rail stations. You never got the rail you were promised.
Never got the rail.
Never got the bus and train stations you were promised.
Never got that. We have some park and rides, but it's not changed.
We're talking with Mayor John Annarella at Huntersville Town Hall, not far from these rusty rails that run through the center of his town. They're the old Norfolk Southern freight train tracks that CATS never got permission to use for commuter trains, despite all those taxes collected for transit that taxpayers expected. These old Red Line maps and timelines show actual rail service to Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson was supposed to start soon after 2010. The old CATS transit plan promising commuter trains between North Mech and Uptown every 15 minutes in peak periods.
It was a great plan on paper, but the only thing that's really been done over the last 20 or so years in terms of the Red Line has been studying it. I think we've had at least 3, if not 4 studies.
And while CATS tries and fails to put trains on these North Mech rails, well, they keep spending the old transit tax for tracks to other parts of town. Like the light rail line from Uptown to UNC Charlotte. The original transit plan proposed building bus rapid transit to serve the University Corridor instead, because rail ridership there was considered too low and the cost of rail too high. But CATS wound up building the Blue Line extension anyway, locally funded by that original transit tax money. The old transit tax also helped to build these brand new tracks, now connecting the Johnson C. Smith area by streetcar to Plaza Midwood. Even though that Gold Line streetcar from the west side to the east side is never even mentioned in the original transit tax plan.
So when you see a headline in the Charlotte Observer that says Red Line is a priority, we've seen this story before, and it doesn't end well for North Mecklenburg.
But I also believe that one thing that will be different this time is that we're not just talking about the Red Line or transit.
Charlotte Assistant City Manager Taiwo Jaioba is on the Charlotte Moves Task Force.
We want to make sure everybody's getting very familiar with what it is that's being proposed.
That's Jaioba sitting next to former Mayor Harvey Gantt, chairman of the task force, which is recommending that new mobility tax to voters.
What are the benefits to you in your town, in Cornelius, in Davidson, in Huntersville? Not just about Charlotte, but in your town. It could just be streets, or bikeways or greenways.
Mobility tax supporters also suggest that those faraway new light rail projects located only in Charlotte actually benefit everybody, especially after COVID, by bringing new growth and new jobs that we all share.
For every mile of track you lay, there is a job number that's associated with that. It's the best way to to galvanize the economy and begin to generate jobs again. This is not just about Charlotte. This is about Mecklenburg County, and this is about the adjoining towns.
We've been told this will be coming for 15 years. If you build it, they will come, right?
That was before Ray Steimel built his brewery here in Huntersville near the rail line, the track just beyond the back of Primal Brewery's beer garden.
Had potential inside, had room for brewing outside, and it had the railroad tracks. And to know that it was going to be running down this corridor, you know, it would be a whole revitalization. We're going to have the light rail. When the light rail opens, this is going to happen to our business. So we're still waiting.
Ray adds the Red Line is the reason he supported the transit tax the first time around, but not this time.
That tax increase was the only tax increase I ever voted for. I bet most people don't even know they're still paying it. I mean, it's all in the same county. It would be nice if it was all treated the same. So when they say they're going to do something, they really ought to think about sticking to it.
You know, I think it's great to be regional if you're on the long end of the stick, but if you're on the short end, it's a little hard to take.
In fact, we talked with Mayor Annarella the day after his Huntersville Town Board voted unanimously against the mobility tax. Other North Meck mayors also voicing their opposition, and the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce saying no to any future sales tax increase for transit improvements they haven't seen yet and may not see for decades.
We hope you enjoyed the story. If you don't want to miss any more great stories about the Charlotte region, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.